Welcome back to r/neighbors from hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors. And if you are new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community. And without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. The first one is titled "Neighbors' Kids Repeatedly Trespassed on My Property and Injured Themselves. Mom Wants to Sue Me." The local school made a new bus pickup spot in front of my house. It technically was on the sidewalk in front and not on my property, so nothing right away was going on illegal. I had a small fence and gate, and honestly, I did not think it would be a problem. The kids thought it would be funny while waiting for the bus to hop my fence and mess around on my front yard and fence. A few times they even thought it would be funny to do the old trick of ringing my doorbell and then sprinting back to the bus stop. I knew they were out there though, so I was not going to give them any satisfaction. I did not want them jumping my fence and messing around though, because I did not want them to get hurt going onto my property. What I would have wanted to do was talk to the parents of these children, but I did not recognize any of them, and asking a kid where they lived was definitely a bad idea in my book. I tried going out and telling the kids that they had to stay off of my property because they were going to get hurt. I even put up a sign that said "No trespassing." That sign ended up getting defaced a lot throughout this whole ordeal, from Sharpies all the way to raw eggs. They were probably about 13 or 14 and thought they were being super cool about it. It did not work, and they kept ending up on my property. I called the school and the bus company to try and get them to move the stop or to talk to the kids, and I got some generic answer that they would look into it, and then nothing. I even ended up calling the police non-emergency line to tell them that I was not worried about the trespassing as much as them getting hurt on my property. It was not like I was going to arrest a bunch of kids for doing it, but I thought maybe a police officer could talk to them and let them know that trespassing was in fact illegal. My front yard was not exactly safe, as I had a broken porch step and a few hidden holes that I'm suspecting were dug by moles. Not to mention, the fence was not tall, but it was not short enough that the hop over was easy. They could land wrong and hurt themselves very easily. One day, about 2 weeks later, no officer ever showed up by the way, one kid twisted his ankle hopping over the fence to get back to the bus stop so he would not miss it. I know this because I set up cameras out there in case they actually did damage or something, or in my most paranoid scenario, accuse me of something. I was 13 once, and a lot of kids that age like to try blaming someone else for when they mess up. It probably happened too, because later that day, a very angry woman that looked like just how one would describe a Karen came up to my door and started punching on it instead of knocking normally or using the doorbell. Me? Can I help you? Woman: "How dare you? You let my son and his friends play on your yard, and now he twisted his ankle." Me? I did not let anyone on my yard. If he is one of the kids from the bus stop, I asked them several times to stay off of my property and even put up a "No trespassing" sign. Woman: "You're a liar. You invited my baby into your yard and then he got hurt. That makes you liable for his injuries and his mental anguish. I hope you like spending the rest of your life behind bars or living in a cardboard box. When I get done with you, there will be nothing left of your life." Me? Ma'am, I have video footage of the kids hopping over my fence and audio of me asking them multiple times to stay off of it. Plus phone records to the school and the non-emergency police telling them that this has been occurring since the school started. Woman: "Fake tapes. I know what really happened because my boy would never lie to me." She left, and I just decided that if she was going to sue me, I had plenty of evidence to defend myself. Right after that, I checked the footage and saw exactly how he twisted his ankle as he rushed to get to the bus before it left. I know that getting taken to court by a Karen and embarrassing her is always a nice story to tell, but that did not happen. I did get a notice from a lawyer who I then sent all my evidence to, and never heard back from him or the mother again. Still, the kid got hurt on my property and I wanted to do something to stop it from happening again. He would not be the first kid to get hurt if this kept going, and I'm sure more protective Karen moms were to follow. I debated making my fence taller or even calling the police for trespassing just to scare the living crap out of these kids. I spoke to my brother about this and his suggestion was that I needed to call someone higher than the school or the bus company. I needed to take the matter straight to the school board because they were the ones that would actually make sure the kids were being spoken to about these things. I know the bus driver sees them on my property and just does not know it is not their house or just does not care. I take his advice though and call the school board stating that I have a concern about the kids being in unsafe conditions waiting for the bus in the morning. I know that I exaggerated it a little bit, but I needed to get someone to actually speak to me, and those words worked like magic. I explained the situation and it turns out that the bus stop was almost like an extension of the school, the same way the bus itself was. That meant the kids not only needed to follow all school rules at the bus stop, but if a kid got hurt, it was actually the school that would become liable and not me. A kid twisting his ankle was enough for them to get concerned because the school did not want to be getting sued about it. The school also felt really embarrassed that they were getting a call like this about their students breaking the code of conduct and giving the school a bad reputation. I did not want to tarnish them and again told them that the focus was really on keeping the kids safe. The day after that, the kids stopped jumping my fence and I guess they got a good talking to from the school. A week later, the bus stop was moved a block away where the kids would be on a sidewalk outside of a park. This way, even if they were goofing off before the bus came, they were doing it both safe and legally. I'm just glad I have no angrier Karens at my door anymore and no more kids potentially getting hurt on my lawn. And you know, Ripe Stars, I'm sure that you have also seen these people, or maybe just I have, that live next to schools. Usually they are pretty grumpy and maybe slightly older, and they complain pretty much 24/7 about the kids being loud or annoying or something. However, in my opinion, this story is very different because OP, rightfully, was very concerned about people getting hurt on his property, because in fact he might be liable if they get hurt. Therefore, I would definitely say that OP did the right thing. What do you think about this story? Let us know in the comments. The next one is titled Revenge of the Local Hero. This happened quite a few years ago. Where my hometown is a thing called ALR, Agricultural Land Reserve. Basically, there are areas of land that can only ever be used for agriculture in order to protect prime agricultural land from becoming highways and strip malls and things like that. A friend of a friend, let's call him Fred, had inherited a piece of such land on the outskirts of the city. He had no interest in doing any kind of farming, but the ALR rules allow for the property owner to have a personal residence on the land, so he built a house on it and had a nice place to live just outside of town. Now, City Hall has ways of acquiring ALR land and using it for non-agriculture purposes. I'm not familiar with how exactly, but they can, and it is about impossible for anybody else too. One thing the city would do is acquire all ALR land and turn it into condo developments. They had a vision for 3 high-end condos to be built where Fred's property was. They had already bought the properties on either side of Fred's land and were going after his too. The city was only offering Fred the property value, and since he just built a house there, he would be losing on the deal, so Fred said no. While the condos on either side of Fred were being constructed, the city used every tool they could to try and expropriate Fred's land, but the ALR restrictions made it tricky. Finally, they told Fred that since his land was ALR, he needed to be using it for agriculture within 30 days, or they could take it from him. Fred's response? Pig farm. He crammed as many pigs onto his property that he legally could, full compliance with farming regulations, health and safety, the whole 9 yards. Since he had fulfilled his obligations with the ALR, the city could not touch him. Period. The city had already pre-sold a number of these condos, and naturally, none of the buyers were very happy to have spent a small fortune to live next to a big stinky pig farm. Most of the buyers obtained grounds for dismissal on their purchase agreements, while the rest filed a big lawsuit. The city's project was sinking fast. The city started negotiating with Fred, and the story ends with the city finally making Fred an offer for his land that was so ridiculous he had no choice but to accept. The city finished their condo project, but thanks to Fred, they did not make nearly as much off of it as they had anticipated. So yeah, ripe stars, maybe we could extend the saying never mess with a farmer to never mess with a person that has farmable land. Anyway, if you enjoy the revenge and neighbor stories, then please don't forget to post some star emojis in the comments if you want to support my channel. Thank you so much in advance. And the next one is titled, "You should have given me my deposit." So, about 10 years ago, my wife, then girlfriend, and I decided to move in together. She was sick of living in a dorm and my lease was up, and we had a family friend that was looking for someone to move into a little granny flat under their house. I say under because they lived on a steep hill where the flat was below the house with an entrance on the backside, so we had this incredible view out back, a pool, we will get to that insane thing, fire pit, etc., and the rent was in our price range, and the LL, let's call her Mary, even dropped it $100 if we did some yard work, skimmed the pool, etc. Oh, my parents, by the way, own a couple of rentals and have my whole life. I have done maintenance for them and even attended a couple court cases as well with them. This will come into play later. Everything was great for a couple of months, and then Mary and her wife started fighting. Screaming matches, stomping above us, throwing things. I did not understand how people could be that mad at each other that often and still be together. I eventually sent them an email saying we were not comfortable with the fighting and we wanted to make sure they were okay, etc. They replied to that with, "You are lucky you have a place this nice." Mary began to scrutinize the yard and pool work I was doing, to the point she would insist I vacuum and skim the saltwater pool with no chemicals. Saltwater pools need far less chlorine than regular ones, but they still need some. Wanted me to stop mowing and use a weed whacker only because the mower was getting old and tired, really petty things. The last straw was when a driver was shot in a gang shooting across the street. We decided to cut our losses and get out of there. We then found a new apartment and a roommate, one of my wife's college friends, that was open a month later, perfect for us. We were on a month-to-month on this place, emailed Mary that we were moving out in 30 days, etc. At that point, she went insane. Tried to do daily inspections of the granny flat, would call and email daily with chores around the property she would insist we do, and would pound on her floor, our ceiling, every time she heard so much as a whisper. Daily inspections would require 24 hours notice, she never gave that, and then she tried to bring potential renters over to see the flat. We flat out told her to go away when that happened with no notice. Finally, 2 weeks before move out, she had a pest control guy stop by when I was at work and my wife was in class. Our cat was home alone and we got the notice about spraying pesticide from her in a text about the same time the guy started. So I rush home after work, stop by upstairs and ask for a copy of the pest control receipt. I have massive allergies to most pesticides, so I need to know what was used. She goes into her office and brings back a copy with every single chemical on the list checked off, every single one. I immediately take the copy, run down, grab the cat and a handful of clothes and drive to my parents' house. We stayed there 4 days, hoping everything would clear out in time for us to finish packing and cleaning. The last couple of days before move out, Mary was out of town and we were able to get it completely finished a day early. We had even patched nail holes, painted, cleaned the carpet. My mom came and helped us get it ready for the next tenants. It was immaculate and we took photos and video of everything. When Mary did the checkout with us, we said we were not comfortable being there without filming, legal to do, and she did a short walkthrough FIR stating it was fine, but that her copier was broken and she would have to email us the final copy. 2 days later we got that copy with $1,400 in damages claimed above our deposit, including a number of charges like "My wife had to replace a screw in a cabinet, $1 for screw, $15 for labor." I was livid. The place was spotless. My mother, a landlord who does all her own prep work and rentals, helped us, and we had been very non-confrontational except for filming the walkthrough. I had kept every email, text and letter from them and started to put together a small claims case. I figured she would already be doing the same. Luckily, I knew my tenant rights and that she had violated them a lot, including email chains where I had pointed out 24-hour notice laws, etc. in emails, and she would reply to them. Finally, I called the exterminator. The conversation went like this. Hi, you sprayed in my flat without my permission because my landlord ordered it with no notice to me, with my cat inside, and used every chemical on your receipt. We most certainly did not. Here's a copy of the work order. We only put out ant traps on the outside. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for your clarification. Armed with that last little piece, I countersued asking for a bad faith penalty as well as our deposit. Bad faith was 3 times the deposit, so I was asking for a total of 4 times what we had given Mary on move-in. The big day came in court. I showed up early, had everything in order and ready, and she swaggers in, huffed up and clearly ready to put me in my place. We sit outside the courtroom for about 20 minutes until a courtroom worker asks the waiting room if anyone would be willing to go to mediation instead, since they were booked solid. We both say yes and go into a mediation room with an arbitrator whose job was just to keep us civil and answer any legal questions they could while staying neutral. Mary lays out her case. It takes about 4 minutes. The arbitrator looked very neutral still. Then I present my case, bringing up each violation, each lie, and end it with the work order from the exterminator, both copies. At this point the arbitrator looks visibly upset, and I can tell they are just trying to stay neutral. Mary then asks them, why is he asking for 4 times the deposit? The arbitrator then explains the bad faith penalty and then looks at me. Would you be okay to drop the penalty for your deposit back? Sure. They looked over at Mary. I cannot tell you what to do, but what I can say is, if you decide to go back into that courtroom in front of a judge, it is not likely to go in your favor. I swear they really said this. I know they are not supposed to, but they did. I got my deposit back. And the next one is titled, Ex-girlfriend wants to move back in 3 weeks after breakup, claims tenant rights. 3 weeks ago, my ex-girlfriend of 2 years and I broke up. We have lived together in California for about 1 year, 50 weeks, and moved to NC 11 weeks ago. She had been cheating on me and upon breaking up immediately moved to his place. Apparently things did not work out, and the very same night she was back on my doorstep with her cases. She wanted to move back in until she had found a place of her own. I obviously turned her down, but was nice enough to give her a ride to the nearest motel. On the ride there she was begging me and that it was just for maybe a few weeks until she had found a place of her own. Since I am still in the process of working through the breakup, I tried my best to stay calm and simply told her that it was not a good idea, and frankly, after what she had done to me, she should consider herself lucky I am even giving her this right. 2 days pass and she is back at my doorstep, cases in tow again. She had thought about it and informed her of her rights and said that as a long-time co-rent she had tenant rights and I could not just put her out on the street like that. She had not even changed her address with government agencies, she hadn't even gotten a new driver's license. However, obviously, she had already been removed from the rental agreement, and I pointed out to her that her tenant rights ended when she walked out the door rather than that I put her on the street. She disagrees and has given me 1 day to think about it, 16 hours left before she calls the cops. So my questions, is she right or am I right that her tenant rights expired when she left on her own accord 3 weeks ago? Next, if she comes by with the cops and the cops tell me I have to let her in even if she's wrong, do I have to listen to the cops? For the record, there are no more possessions of her in this house. Next, does she stand any chance in court if she's trying to take it that far, and should I perhaps not risk it and serve her an eviction notice as soon as she moves back in, or is this deal done and dusted and should I just stand my rights? And a person in the comments said, NC cop here, while I don't deal with tenant disputes because that is the sheriff's world, I can say that from my experience that when she packed her things and she left, that she abandoned her right to stay. If you kicked her out it would be one thing, but she packed up, left, and sounds like she had every intention of not returning, hence the baggage. Call the police and request a domestic standby if she shows back up or threatens to. Also, give a call to your local sheriff for your county and get their advice on how to properly document and secure yourself if she attempts to push the issue. Well guys, and to me that ex-girlfriend in this case sounds like a textbook entitled person. What would you have done if you were in this weird situation? Let us know in the comments. Update to the ex-girlfriend wants to move back in story. Update, you know how Batman beats Superman? Prep time. First, I got in touch with the landlord and he gave me permission to get the locks changed, which I did. He also agreed that if the cops wanted, they could call him to confirm that my ex let him know she was moving out and that when he comes over a week after, she and her belongings were indeed gone. While some suggested to completely ignore the cops, having learned they couldn't actually force me to let her in, I thought it was smarter to talk to them and explain the situation. Also, in case my ex tries to pull something funny in the future, I don't want to put them against me when I might need them later on. Because I am nervous as hell, I decided to make it a well-structured, well-prepared encounter. I wrote and printed a script, took about 2 hours of 4 questions to establish the situation and make sure I am on the same wavelength as the officers when it comes to my rights. I also wrote out the timeline and collected some evidence to support my version of the events. Even with the script, I was very nervous and it may not have come out super smooth, but I thought clarity was more important. While she had given me 24 hours to let her back in, she showed up 22 hours after she made that demand. I was not surprised and had actually expected something like that, so I had just planned to spend hour 20 to 25 playing games. She had 2 police officers with them. When they rang the doorbell, they introduced themselves, explained what they were here for, ex-girlfriend says that you illegally evicted her, and asked if they could come in. I told them the police officers were welcome to come in, but that I did not want my ex-girlfriend to enter and that I would like that right to be respected. Not in the script, but I expected the question, so had the answer prepared. They agreed that one officer would come in to talk and the other one would stay outside with my ex-girlfriend. After establishing my rights in this situation, see the script, I gave them my version of events and showed them the screenshots and pictures to support it. They called my landlord who confirmed my story. They also looked around the house to conclude there was indeed nothing to suggest that my ex-girlfriend was a current tenant. They ended with the question if I was sure about my position of not letting her in, which I affirmed. They said they would respect that decision on their end and walked out and then away with my ex-girlfriend. The script, police officers' answers added in bold. Before we talk, I would like to ask you 4 questions to establish the situation. Okay. The reason you are here tonight concerns a civil matter, not a criminal matter, is that correct? Correct. Do you have a court order with you of any sorts through which you can compel me to do something in favor of my ex-girlfriend tonight? No, we don't. These things considering, is it fair to say you are here in the role of a mediator, not as a law enforcement officer? We are law enforcement officers at all times, but yes, we are currently here to mediate, not to enforce a criminal law that has been broken. So regardless of the outcome of our talk, you cannot give a lawful order to let her in, and I am in my rights to not comply, should this happen. If this is indeed a civil matter, you are correct. Thank you. Now let me say up front that I have no intention of letting her back in, and since this is a civil matter which has not been resolved in court, will respectfully decline any order to do so. Now, I would like to tell you my side of the story, which I will support with evidence to help you understand my position. And ripe stars, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you still cannot get enough of my content, then I would highly suggest to check out my endless binge watch playlist, which will soon show up in the left corner of the screen. In addition, I would really appreciate it if you could not only subscribe to the channel, but also turn on the bell notifications, which you can do by clicking on the little bell icon right next to the subscribe button. This will help my channel tremendously, and this will make sure that you don't miss any of my videos. Furthermore, if you want to see additional ripe content that I don't post on YouTube, then I would suggest to head on over to patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more than 50 exclusive videos that you will not see anywhere else. Thank you so much for your amazing daily support, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.